Now, as we read in the last page here about BJ that she wanted to start writing her second newspaper, and she decided to use the same formula that she used in her first newspaper, which is writing also about BJ. But this time she wanted to write a new story about him. That's why she chose a story called BJ's Gingerbread House. Now, before we continue reading and see what is this story and what are the details in it, here let's find or identify the main idea and details in this paragraph. The main idea is giddy with success, I immediately began writing the second issue. This is the main idea, the main sentence in this paragraph. Now, what are the details that support this main idea? The neighborhood dogs were still every bit as boring as they had been a week earlier, so I decided to repeat my winning formula and use BJ as the main article again. This is the first detail that supports this main idea. And the second one, since I had already told the only unusual thing about my dog, this time I wrote a story called BJ's Gingerbread House. This is the second detail that supports the same main idea. So this is about main idea and details. Let's see now what happened with BJ and what did she write in her second issue. Our new washing machine had arrived in a large card box. I kept the box to create a special house for BJ, who slept in the basement every night. So she kept the cardboard box of the new washing machine, so she can make a new house for BJ so he can sleep inside it. I spent hours decorating the box, copying a picture of a gingerbread house that was in one of my books. I colored curlicues. I blistered my hands cutting designs in the cardboard. I painted flowers on the sides. The gingerbread house was absolutely breathtaking. Now, she spent hours decorating her gingerbread house for BJ, and she started cutting pictures and decorating the house and coloring. These are examples of curlicues. She used them, something like that, to decorate the box to make it nice for BJ to sleep in. She blistered her hands. The blister is something like a bubble that comes or appeared on the skin, and there is a liquid inside it. Sometimes because when someone burned his skin or got injured or something, he got this blistered. And also when you use the scissor for a long time, you may have these blisters. So and blister, it could be a noun, it could be a verb. So she blistered her hands because she cut a lot of designs to decorate the cardboard, and she painted flowers on the sides. In her opinion, the gingerbread house was absolutely breathtaking, amazing. So this is an opinion because it shows the writer's opinion or Pig's opinion about the gingerbread house. At bedtime that night, I took BJ down to the basement and put his blanket in the beautiful gingerbread house. I petted him and kissed him and told him I knew he would sleep well. So she took BJ to his new house. She prepared it for him, and she told him that he will sleep well that night because in her opinion it is amazing. The next morning, I couldn't believe my eyes. BJ had licked the glue from the cardboard, creating a sticky mess in his beard, and had chewed the house into dozens of pieces. He pranced toward me through the wreckage that littered the floor. Now, in the second morning, when she went to see BJ, she couldn't believe her eyes. He licked all the glue on the cardboard. He cut all the house into pieces, and he littered the floor. He made a big mess on the ground, and he ran toward her between the wreckage, the damage, the destruction of the house that he made in the basement. And if you can see here the illustration, how he cut all the house into pieces and damaged it as if she did nothing the whole hours. And here how the cardboard and the glue is stick to on his beard, and here how she's shocked and amazed of what he has done. This story was quite a bit shorter than the story of BJ's rescue from a bombed out house in Germany and far less interesting. Now, she wrote that this story is shorter than the first story that she used in her first newspaper when she wrote about how her uncle rescued him between the destruction in Germany. This is a fact actually, because yeah, it's true that this story is shorter than the first one, but she ended here with an opinion that it's far less interesting. In her opinion, the second story about BJ is less interesting than the first one. So you see here, in the same sentence, she can write fact and opinion in the same time. I filled the rest of issue number 2, which means her second newspaper, of the dog newspaper with stirring reports, such as Rusty knocks over garbage can and Cleo chases cat. So she wrote mainly about BJ and his story, but she also wrote some small reports or articles about other dogs in the neighborhood like Rusty and Cleo and what they are doing, some exciting reports, small reports, just to fill her newspaper and to fill all the pages in the newspaper. After I delivered my papers, I eagerly waited for more compliments on my exciting journalism. None came. The next issue was even worse. So here she got a lot of compliments, which means nice comments about her first newspaper. When she delivered and she distributed and she sold the second newspaper, she was also waiting for nice compliments. But none came. No one gave her any nice comment about the second newspaper. So in her opinion, the next issue was even worse. So we can say that this is also an opinion, her opinion about the second issue. It's worse than what? Than the first one. Okay, because she didn't get this reaction from people as the first newspaper. Since BJ still had done nothing newsworthy, he's still not doing something not interesting. BJ became like other dogs in the neighborhood. He's doing nothing interesting. He is just normal dog, like others. I used the front page to describe what a beautiful and great dog he was. The other dogs, as always, got brief mention on the back page, desperate to fill the space. I even wrote a story titled Skippy Gets a Bath. So again, she kept writing about her dog and describing him in her front page. Just give small and brief mention or reports about other dogs in the neighborhood just to fill space and to fill papers in her newspaper. Issue number 3 was a publishing disaster. So her third newspaper was a disaster. This is her opinion also. It's a disaster. No one cared about it. Few people read it. This is a fact. Few people read number 3. The only person who purchased issue number 4 was my grandpa. So now she also published the 4th newspaper, but the only one who bought it was her grandpa. And this is a fact that only one person bought issue number 4. So these are facts, but this one that that her third issue is a disaster, this is her opinion. Less than 1 month after its launch, the dog newspaper went out of business. Here, do you remember that she published, or her newspaper was a weekly publication. She published it every week. That's why in the first week, the first newspaper was amazing and everyone loved it. The second newspaper was worse than the first one. Not many people like it. She didn't get a lot of comment, or actually she didn't get any compliment about it in the second one. The third week she published the third newspaper, and in her opinion it was a disaster. And the fourth week she published the fourth newspaper that only her grandpa bought it. So that's why in 1 month her dog newspaper went out of business, which means it stopped. No one read it anymore and no one bought it anymore. Okay, now let's see what was her mistake. I believed my writing career was over. Now, she started her writing career when she was 10 years old, and only for 1 month she was writing in newspaper and her career was over. Only in 1 month, because I'm sure she did a mistake. My mistake. Now she admitted what was her mistake. I thought then was always putting my own dog on the front page. Now I realize that having dull material was an even bigger error. Would the dog newspaper have succeeded if I had featured Rusty or Fluffy or Cleo? Probably not, because Rusty, Fluffy, Cleo, and all the other neighborhood dogs hadn't done anything special. So, she admitted that she did a mistake, actually two mistakes, to make her newspaper went out of business. First of all, she always put her dog in the front page of her newspaper. And the second error, or the second mistake, that she used dull materials, boring materials in her articles, in her reports. That's why people stopped reading it and feel interesting to have this newspaper. Now she was thinking that if I wrote about other dogs in the neighborhood, would people love my newspaper? But then she said no, because all the dogs in the neighborhood, including Fluffy, Rusty, or Cleo, all of them did nothing interesting. So even if I will write about them, people would not love my stories or my reports. If Fluffy had gotten lost and been returned home in a police car, or if Cleo had won a prize in a dog show, or if Rusty had given birth to puppies, then perhaps the neighbors would have wanted to read my articles. She said maybe if these dogs did something special, like, for example, if Fluffy got lost and he returned in a police car, or if Cleo won a prize, or if Rusty gave birth to puppies, maybe if they did something like that, these dogs, and I wrote about them, people will love my stories. But all the dogs did something boring, did nothing interesting actually in the neighborhood. Now I know that if I want people to read what I write, I must write something that they find interesting. This is what any writer should do. When you want to write something and you want people to read your writing and feel interesting about it, you have to be careful and you have to know what people like so you can write about it. So in her opinion, I need exciting plots, unique information, and fresh insights. So in Peg's opinion, to make her writing succeeded and to make people read her writing, she has to choose exciting plots, exciting events, exciting things happened, unique information, which means special information, and fresh insights, which means new opinions for the people or for the characters. So these are her mistakes that let her newspaper went out of business, and here how she can fix her mistake and keep on in her writing career. Okay, now when I wrote the dog newspaper, I was so caught up in the fun of creating a newspaper and getting paid for my work that I lost sight of my audience. What was in it for them, except for the first issue? Not much. In her opinion, when she was thinking about writing a newspaper, the only goal or the only ideas stick in her mind, that she only wanted to make a newspaper and to have fun to make a newspaper, and she wanted to get paid, and she wanted to collect money from her newspaper. She didn't think about what people may think about her newspaper, or would they like it or not. So she didn't think about people's interests in her stories. She was only thinking about having fun in writing a newspaper and get money and getting paid when she sells the newspaper. She didn't think about what people would like or what are their interests in reading the stories and so on. So this is also another mistake for her. She had to put in her mind to be a good writer. BJ took one more plane ride from Minneapolis to Fresno, California, where my parents moved shortly after I got married. He loved the California sunshine and spent his old age sleeping on the patio. He lived to be 16, a good long life for an orphaned puppy who entered the world during a wartime bombing. Now you see, Peg skipped in her writing this story from age 10 till many years later when she got married, and BJ moved with her family from Minneapolis to California, and now he is 16 years old, and he is old and he's spending all his time sleeping on the patio, which is the veranda, the front part of the house, doing nothing. And in her opinion, it's a very long life for an orphaned puppy who was found in a wartime bombing. And no one bothered to save any issues of the dog newspaper. I can't imagine why. Now, after all these years, no one kept her newspaper or saved them. And she was asking herself, I can't imagine why. Of course, usually people, when they buy the newspaper and read it, they won't keep it for a long time, especially if the newspaper doesn't have something special. You won't keep it. You will throw it away and get rid of it, okay? And this is what happened with her newspaper. No one kept it for this long time. But now, Peg, as we said, this is an autobiography. It's a real story about Peg's life when she was 10 years old, and when she started writing her newspaper only for 1 month because it's a weekly publication, and she was writing about BJ who lived with them all the time. And now she skipped from this time till this time when she was 10 years old till here when she got married and she moved to her husband's house, and now BJ moved with her family to California, and he was also getting old or grew older, and he became 16 years old, spending his time sleeping, doing nothing. So again, he became a boring dog as other dogs in the neighborhood. Now, but just here to see that Peg, as we said, that she is a writer and she has big interests in animals. That's why if you can see or you go to search for her writings, you see that she wrote a lot of stories, fiction or non-fiction, about animals. One of them called Sheltered Dogs, one of them called Amazing Stories of Adopted Strays. And this is her interests actually. That's why maybe this is her first story or her first newspaper when she was writing, that is the dog newspaper. I hope you like the story and enjoy it, understood the facts and opinions, main idea and details, and also the meaning of an autobiography when someone writes a story about himself or herself, and point of view in the story. It's what? First point of view, because the point of view, because the narrator is a character in the story and she's writing a story about herself. That's why we can see a lot of I and my and so on. Thank you so much.